Hey guys, it is time to talk about everything, or rather how little we read in the month of June. Hey guys, if you're new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this is New Fish Radio, thanks for sticking around. So, June, for me, I was surprised because I thought I literally only read like maybe 2, 3 things. I mean, I read 5, so it's not that far off, but it was more than what I thought I did. Kind of took a dive after like the outstanding reading month that we had for May. But it is what it is. It's, like I said, summer has been totally different than what I expected, not as laid back. For us over here, it is like July's it. We start school in August, at the beginning of August. So summer is winding down, and I'm kind of sad to see it go because I feel like it just went by really, really quick. But at the same time, I'm excited because I feel like once the school starts and time can be a little bit more my own, things can get a little bit more to being back on track. And so yeah, I mean it's been fun. We've done a lot of fun things as a family this summer, but like it'll be nice to get back to, you know, the regular, you know, timing of things and the scheduling of things. So it's something to look forward to as well. So let's go ahead and get into what we read for the month of June. First up, we ended up receiving an arc of The Bone Altar's Bride by E.C. Gregory. This is book 1 in the Blood Oath cycle. This is really kind of like a novella. It was a very short story. Basically, you have this village that there was a war, and there's this king that kind of, he's known as the Unnamed King, and people think of him as ruthless, and that because of what he's, you know, doing, there's kind of like chaos and darkness in the land, and that he demands like a pretty much like a sacrificial bride every so often, and that nobody ever sees these people again. And so it's about that time, and all the girls get their names put in, and our main girl, Leora, is a little bit older. She is a healer, and she does, I believe she has a younger sister, and it's like her sister's first time kind of being put in, and Leora's thinking, you know, it won't happen to me, it won't happen to you. Our mom tends to work things in our favor so we don't get picked. And lo and behold, Leora is picked. She's prepared within hours, and she's sent on her way to be this bride. Over the course of what seems like 2 nights, maybe 3 nights, stuff pops off, boom, 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 just unending like kind of chaos of what's going on, where you find out what's going on with this unnamed king, and there are curses abound, and how can she be a part of breaking this curse and like kind of making it so nobody else has to go through what she's going through. I don't want to give too much more than that away, because I feel like since it's a novella, anything more than that would be like giving stuff away. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was really interesting. I would have liked this to actually have been expanded into a regular novel size. I feel like there was a lot of stuff here that could have been expanded on and just made it all that much better. The quickness with which everything happened, I felt if it could have been a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit lengthier, a little bit longer, like more in depth, you would have been pulled in more for these characters and their story. You would have been really rooting for it. Whereas if you're reading it so quickly, you don't get enough time to really kind of attach yourself to one of the characters, or to like feel the emotions going on, or to actually have that much emotions in the story, because it was so plot driven. But it was decent. It was interesting. It had some really good, you know, lines in it. But I really wanted it expanded on, because everything felt so quickly done that some of the tension was taken out. Some of the growing romance really didn't feel like it was there. It just went boom, romance. And it almost made it seem, because of the quickness of everything, that what was going on was so easily, could have been easily overcome, which I don't think was the key for that. So it really was decent. I just wanted it expanded more, because I think that would have really kind of driven it home for me. But yeah, so 4 stars. So we did do that one. Next up, we received another arc, and this was for The Mating Trials by Anastasia Daniels. This one seemed really interesting because I had just read, I think it was Wild Mate by Misty Wilds, and I absolutely loved that. So I was all in for another mate games trials going on. And this one was interesting. You basically had this world where all the wolf shifters lived in different groups, and they lived very, like, I'm trying to search for the word, like, because the only thing that comes to mind is like almost like caveman-ish, but like they had like a few what we would deem modern items. Like there was like a book or two, there were things like that, but like they had backpacks or sacks or whatever, but they lived in caves. They slept on like cave surfaces. They didn't have like beds or really any furniture or any electricity. Other communities lived high up in like treetop type, like flats or something. They were just really kind of, it wasn't like what I would normally think of whenever I read like a wolf shifter community, where they exist like we do. They have houses, they have modern conveniences, they live in whatever. I don't know if this was a story that was like post-apocalyptic or anything like that. I don't know. I didn't get that vibe from it. It was just like a separate world, like and kind of felt like an America, but like an America of like a different world or dimension, I guess. I don't know. What I found interesting is that you have these wolf communities living this way. They exist in nudity. No shame there, but it definitely like made it interesting when they're living in these caves and everybody has their own little cavern of a cave and everybody's walking around naked, and everybody else in the cavern could hear when other people were enjoying themselves. And it's like, okay, privacy is not a thing. And then it also, because they're walking around in nudity and they're running around, they're grimy. They don't always shower. They do mention baths later on for specific things, but you keep talking to them about how they're always covered in grime, how they don't bathe all the time. And then I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, and this could be a me thing, but I'm just like, this is a spicy novel. It has spicy parts. And the only thing I can think of is, did they bathe before this? Like, are you guys clean? Because God only knows what you guys got going on. And if you ain't bathing, that's just kind of like, it made the dirty scenes that much dirtier. We'll just go with that. And it was just not for me on that one, because that was just always in the back of my mind. The other thing that was interesting is, even though they live in these caves and in these rooftops on like in treetops or whatever it is, when they come for the mating games or the mating trials, which happens like every year for those of age, they go into a castle. And I'm like, so there is a structure, you know, there are castles. I'm like, so people don't have like village huts. They don't have any sort of like other, like, if people are living in caves and they're living in treetops, how does this castle exist? Like, why was it just, they just thought, well, we're only going to build this one castle and everybody's just going to come here? And how did they have the technology to build a castle, but everybody else is living like in squalor? What it felt like. So it's just questions. They also, because they live in nudity, when they get to these trials on like the first night, they have to wear like these the closest thing I could say is they're close to like togas. Basically, they have to wrap themselves in these fabrics, and they're complaining about it the whole time. And I'm just like, well, what's the purpose of it? Like, what's the like, if you run around naked and it's for a mating game and you're supposed to be showing yourself off, like, why do you need to cover yourself up for this meal? Like, because the rest of the time they're walking around nude again. So I'm just kind of like, okay. And then one of the trials, you end up finding out that the trials, like I was expecting prove your strength, prove your whatever, like these are gonna be deadly trials. And it was like, hey, you're gonna howl at the moon and your song's going to entice someone to you. And I'm like, okay. Or like scent your mate. And I'm like, all right. But you have to do it like blindfolded. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if you guys are wolves, how can you like, can't you scent them anyway? Like, how do you only know who they are when you're blindfolded? And like, I mean, are you concentrating more with your nose? Like, it just seemed a little weird to me. It didn't make much sense where it was like, you're gonna scent, well, they're scenting everything. They're part wolves. So I'm like, they can smell things. So how can they not scent you otherwise? And because there was mystery to that. And it was like, oh, I don't know who this person is, but I can't wait to smell them again. And I'm like, just go out during wherever it is and take a whiff and you'll probably find them. It's just like, why do you have to wait for these specific events? So it was just like a little weird, like it didn't make sense. Also, this castle, the monks that live there are always clothed. Like these shifters are always clothed. And I'm like, okay, well, why are you always clothed and everybody else is this nudity? And then they have like libraries upon like books upon books of all the knowledge of the world. And I'm just like, so if you have like, I wanted more development in the world because there was just so many questions of like, why does this happen? But then if that happens, why is it this way? And if that, like, it just, things weren't making sense. The mate games themselves, where I'm thinking when you use the term mate and shifters and everything like that, there's kind of this understanding that when you go to these trials, you are finding your mate. You are finding the one that is destined to be with you. And this really felt like you were finding, for most of them, just someone to pass the season with. Like if it worked out, great. If not, nah, because you go there and everybody's like ruthless for getting a mate, and then you find out so many of them go with their mates back to their groups only for them to like separate a few months after because they're like, oh, you seemed cool, but no. And I'm just kind of like, then what really is the purpose of these mating trials to find mated? Like, it just kind of took what I would feel like the sacredness or the finality of finding your mate, like that would make you want to go there, where you're just like, well, if you don't know if it's going to last, you're going to have to put yourself through all this and go. I'm like, why not just like travel around and whatever? It didn't make sense for a lot of things. When we get to the characters, you have Ember, who's coming from a cave-like group of wolves, and it's her first time going to the mating trials, and her parents have passed away during the last like fight for Alpha, and so she has been the caretaker for her little brother, and she's worried the whole time about, well, I don't know if I want to find a mate because I don't want to leave my brother. And because mated pairs, they go off and they usually, the female goes where the new, mate is. And part of me got annoyed with that because I was like, okay, so you're kind of using your brother as an excuse to not like live your life. And her brother was very mature and very like, I want you to find your happiness, but she just stood in her own way a lot of times. And I get it. I have a little brother too. Like if I had raised him and whatever, I wouldn't want to be separated. But at the same time, I'd be like, okay, here's my rule for the mate games. Whoever wants to mate with me, you're going to have to, my brother's coming along for the ride. He will join your group as well because I'm not leaving him behind, and then go with that. Like, I don't see why that couldn't have been a thing. I'm like, her alpha knew what was going on, and they said, well, if he stays here, we'll take care of him. And I'm like, okay, well then take him with you. Like, I don't see, there wasn't like a written rule that he had to stay behind. So it was just like, okay, unnecessary kind of drama on that. And anyway, you've got her kind of love interest, which is Thorn, and he's like the alpha of this ice wolf or snow wolf pack. And everybody kind of rags on him because he's not the most violent of wolves in this very violent wolf community. And he has gone to the mating games like, I don't know, 10 years or something, and he hasn't found a mate. And he's very much like, I'm waiting for my destined mate. I'm not just going to take a seasonal mate. I want the one. And I'm like, okay. And it's just, everything comes into fruition. He, obviously starts feeling for Ember, and Ember's feeling for him. But she's like, oh, my brother this, and oh, I can't leave him that. And oh, I don't want to just give up who I am. And she runs the whole hot and cold game, which seems to be a thing I've been reading in a lot of books, and it just kind of irritates me. Like, you can be stubborn, but then like overcome that stubbornness as it goes on. Like, don't become a brat with it. Like, it just seemed so unnecessary in so many things. So I was just not a fan of her. Towards the end of the book, I did, because it's kind of like she recognized certain things and then she became determined in certain ways, and I appreciated that. So there was some growth on there that I liked. Once that started clicking and you had those mate games, I liked it. I liked where it was going. Those ones made more sense to me, how we were going along with it, the tension that was coming, and the fight that Thorn and Ember were putting into it to be with one another. I was like, okay. But at the same time, this was one of those things, if you know who you want to be mated with, why do you need to go through the trials to end up being mated to them? Like, why can't you just proclaim, okay, we're not going to participate in the trials anymore because we found each other? So like I said, there's just a lot of questions I had in this world. It was just very kind of confusing, didn't make a lot of sense. Like I said, you had the wolves living very kind of feral existences, yet when they went to this castle, there was clothing, there was plates and utensils that they wouldn't normally use. And I'm like, okay, well then why do they have it in this one place and then you guys just live with that? Like, it just didn't make a lot of sense. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was what it was. There could have been potential for it to be interesting. I just think a little bit of like the world needed to be, why were things the way they were? It was just, here's what they are. It was just, why, what's the backstory to this world? Why has it developed the way that it has? Because I felt like a lot of that was missing, and maybe would have given some more clarity to the plot. And then, like I said, if she would have just been like, hey, you got to take my brother too, or maybe she was fighting with her alpha because maybe it's not the way, and she's like, well, let's make it the way, then it would have been a little bit more like, okay, I get this. Now it's a thing because now she's trying to fight the rules, and it would have made more sense. But either way, did finish that. Like I said, 3 stars, and we moved on. Coming up next, we did the audiobook of When Life Gives You Vampires by Gloria Duke. Sad to say, I DNF'd this pretty early on. It was an audiobook. I think I listened to maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours of it before I was just like, I can't do this anymore. There was nothing wrong with the narration. Like, the voice narrator was fine. I was just getting annoyed by our main character. So you have Lily, who is a plus size, you know, she's a woman with curves. She's in her early 20s and, you know, single. She's going out to have drinks with her friend. She meets this very handsome, rugged guy. And the next morning she wakes up and she's not feeling herself, basically comes to find out she's a vampire. And so it's kind of her trying to remember what happened, how she turned. And then the vampire who turned her kind of coming in and explaining like the rules of the vampire society and trying to help her out. Pretty basic storyline, but the thing that was just kind of getting to it is there were so many pop culture references, which at first I loved. I kind of got a kick out of it, but then it was just continuous, and it started just being so much where you're like, yeah, okay, I get it, all right, whatever, I get it. And the attitude of the girls and the way that they acted and did kind of things, it just didn't really come off that serious when it needed to be, and they were just kind of like, I don't know, I just started finding our main character very annoying. And then it did say, there was like a warning in the beginning that due to the plus size and curvature of our heroine, there is some commentary on body imaging and body shaming and self-body shaming, which I'm like, okay, I understand that, that's a thing. And it felt like that was literally all her character is nobody else was doing it. She was kind of doing that self-sabotaging, self-shaming, which it's a real thing. Like, I'm not gonna get on that because people really do have, you know, a lot, sometimes they struggle with it and they want to be a certain way, and sometimes they can be the most ruthless against themselves. I get that. But there's something to be said when it's like an occasional thing in a book and how you see her and she's trying to overcome those things, versus it felt like it was a comment on either almost every page or every other page. I mean, obviously I'm doing the audiobook, so it felt like every few minutes she's commenting on her weight. She's commenting on her clothes that don't fit. She's commenting on how bad she looks. She's commenting on how, like, just every time she could slip it in about her weight. Meanwhile, I'm like, there's this gorgeous guy that's loving her, and her best friend thinks she's beautiful, and they're telling her, wow, you look great. And she's just, and I get it. I get that I mean, you could come at me and say, well, you know, people who have these kinds of images of themselves, it's, you know, this negative image, it can be a lot of hard work. And I get that. I get the reality of that. I'm just saying, in the book, in the story, when you're trying to read the story about a girl with curves embracing her role as an overnight vampire, and in that world, I'm like, that's the kind of story that I want to focus on. And you could see her with the body self-negativity and the body imaging and overcoming that going on. But it just was so much. And like I said, it was done in a way where she started just really kind of acting a little immature and just a little like, there's a difference between sass and then like annoying snark. And it just started drifting over there where I was just like starting to question myself of like, do I really want to continue to listen to this? I'm like, it's easy to listen to. Like, there's no, like, you don't really have to focus on it too much. So you could finish it, but are you really going to enjoy it? And then at that point, I was kind of like, eh. And then you found out there was like another story or so in this series. And I was like, I know I'm not going to be doing the next story. Like, I know that I'm not going to go and pick that up. So it's like at that point, what's the purpose of continuing the first story when you know you're just not going to continue with this series? So at that point, I made the decision to DNF. Like, maybe for somebody else, it could be like fun because it does have, like I said, there's a lot of pop culture references that can be funny. There's a lot of things that I find that you could be relatable to. And it does kind of take that into it where there were good aspects. It's just for the reasons I said before, I couldn't continue. It just wasn't for me. So we DNF'd that one. So next up, we moved on to the audiobook of These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This is like the first book in the Hollow Vows series. I had heard a lot of things about this in like years gone by. It's an older series. It was like a Fae world, fantasy romance. I had heard good things and I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and pop this on and we'll listen to it and see what it is. Because it is a YA, and YA fantasy for me right now is kind of hit or miss. There are some YA fantasies that they're a little bit more geared towards a YA audience, towards a high school audience. And then there are those YA fantasies that I feel maybe should have been bumped up to like new adult or adult in nature because of the topics they cover and the way that they're done. And those are the ones that I'm tending to like more versus the regular kind of YA for, you know, high school. This one definitely fits more into the younger high school level. There are some things that are hinted upon, like a little bit of spice, not too much. But yes, there is a little bit of spice that maybe this could have been popped up to new adult because of this open door spice, but it's not as bad as some of the other like new adults or young adults that I've read when it comes to open door spice. Basically, you have the Fae world and the mortal world, and the Fae kind of overpower the humans. They kind of run things, they kind of dictate things, and there is mentions of forms of human servitude that we are not fans of. We'll just go with that. Begins with an S, you can figure it out. Things like that, things of in the realm of human movement, we'll just go with that. And so there are topics of that are covered, which once again, that might be more towards a new adult, not necessarily YA. When I say YA, I mean as far as the plot line itself is more simplistic and the characters are kind of simplistic and the way of writing is this more simpler style, easy to understand, which makes it more for younger readers and younger audiences because it is so easy to get through. in this, you have Bree, who lives with her sister. They kind of live in the basement of this building. Their uncle has passed away. Their mom has disappeared. And they're kind of just existing in this world. Bree hates the Fae, wants nothing to do with them. Her sister's kind of fascinated by them and kind of lives in this romantic fairy tale version of them. And Bree just was like, no, my only goal is to make money so that we can pay our rent, so that we can eventually get out of here and just like be happy. There is a mage that lives next door, and the mage apprentice Bree's kind of crushing on. And basically you find out that the young Frey prince they're holding a ball, and they're inviting all women, whether Fae or human, to come to the castle for this possibility of being married to the Fae prince. And Bree's like, I don't really care. Her sister wants to go, so she's trying to like get Bree to go. And Bree's sister ends up getting taken and sold, and so Bree is now, I'm gonna go over to the Fae world and see what I can do to go and find my sister, and if I have to do this whole bridal competition or whatever in order to get over there and find out what's going on with my sister, then I will do that. So she goes over there and she meets the prince, and I'm not gonna give anything away there. But she also finds out that you have the Shadow Fae realm and the Light Fae realm. And the Shadow Fae realm is what has taken her sister. And so she's basically given a command by the Shadow King, or the Shadow Fae King, to retrieve certain objects from the Light King's, from the Light royal family's realm, and give them to him so that he can take back his power. And so she's having to now really play into these bridal games to win the heart of the prince and get these objects so that she can free her sister. All the while, there is kind of this resistance faction led by the Shadow Fae prince, who is the nephew of the Shadow King, who is also kind of like trying to struggle for the power and the freedom and kind of like the equality of the Fae, and doing that. So the big thing is Fae lie in this. So you don't know what to believe. You don't know who to believe. And so Bree is just trying to make her way in, because her whole thing is, I want to free my sister. But also hearts become on the line. There are betrayals. There are things going on. And there are mistaken identities. There are all sorts of things. And I kind of knew where it was going. I knew who was going to be the trustworthy ones and who weren't pretty easily. For me, I ended up giving it 3 stars. It wasn't bad, but there wasn't anything that really pulled me in. There were times where, once again, I felt Bree was so anti-Fae that it was like she was refusing to see that there could be any good in there, despite there being Fae that were helping her. So it was just really interesting to see that, to see what was going on. And obviously with the ending, I kind of saw that one coming, so it wasn't like it surprised me at all. It left off on a cliffhanger where feminine rage is going to be a thing in the sequel. I don't know if I'm going to do the sequel or not at this point in time. It might sit on the back burner while I do other things, because like I said, it was a decent one, but I just didn't feel pulled in enough of the story where I was like, ooh, oh, and like I didn't have a character that I was really rooting for. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm along for the ride on this, and it's okay. Like I said, not necessarily bad, just not, it just lacked for me. So 3 stars for this one, which takes us to our last book, which actually took us the entire month to read. I'm not gonna lie, I have, like, it's not that it was like a big book either. It wasn't like some 600+ page, beauty, but we ended up reading for the entire month. This was our spinner wheel pick, which was 7 Deadly Thorns by Amber Hamilton. Like I said, not a very long book, but took us the entire month. You basically have a world where it's enshrouded in mist. There was some war between two kingdoms, and something happened to where now one of the kingdoms feels like they're cursed because there's this mist. There's like death in the mist. So you have our main character Viola, who comes from one of the more impoverished communities in this world, and she makes it to the elite academy, but she has to hide herself because she has magic. She is a mage, and in this world mages are killed. So she's kind of keeping her secrets. She comes head to head with Roz, who is the prince of the kingdom, who acts like an entitled you-know-what when he's going around. He is also rumored to be the queen's assassin and just gets his hands a little dirty, and they are just always butting heads until it comes to a point where the queen assigns Viola's assassination to the prince, and the prince is curious to know why. He doesn't really know about her secret. And he doesn't really want to kill her. He sees what she can be. There's certain knowledge that she has that can be beneficial to him for some of the things that he's having the secret about. So lots and lots of secrets in this, and I can't go much more into that because it would be spoilers and give everything away. Nothing really pulled me in character-wise. They just kind of existed. They weren't bad characters. It's just, to me, they didn't feel fleshed out enough to pull me in and feel like any sympathy or any rooting for them. There wasn't really that kind of enemies to, oh, we understand one another, to now we become lovers transition that you kind of see. It really stayed kind of an enemy, I'll deal with you for now. I am attracted to you, but I don't know if I can trust you. Where do we go from here type of scenario. That's really what it kind of felt like for me. A lot of the story I felt dealt with their perception of one another and less to do with the tasks and the basically the king has been found dead and it's kind of like solve his murder. So like a little bit of a murder mystery in here. It felt more like time was passing of them, like I said, perception of one another and perception of what Viola is trying to figure out with her powers and keeping it, secret and just kind of existing. And there were things in there that lent to the plot line that I thought were very good. I can't give them away because spoilers. But there were secret societies, things like that I did like once you kind of got into that. I wish it would have went on a little more in those things. And I wish there would have been a more consistent, steady, we're finding a clue to finding out who did things. However, when you get to the end and you find out who was responsible, it kind of makes sense for why you weren't finding things to begin with. But it just felt a little bit more lackluster. And there were some things towards the end that I'm still kind of scratching my head about of like, how does that work? But I get it. Like, it's one of those, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, I get it, but is that really it? So it was what it was. It wasn't horrible. Like, if you are a fan of dark academia and like all the secrets and things like that, then you probably would enjoy this a little bit more. But I mean, it was what it was. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I did love the little, you can kind of see him on the back, the little gargoyle sidekick creature that she had was adorable. I'll say that. Like, he might be my favorite thing out of the book. Was just adorable. So yeah, like, took us the entire month, 3-star read, but we did it. It had been on my list for a while. I had tried to pick it up a few times because I had heard really good things about it, but just sadly wasn't really for me. But I could see how there could be people that would have the fandom to it with the dark academia. I'm just not big on dark academia with like a little bit of like the gothic-y vibes and kind of things like that. So like, it had really good parts, but just not enough to really make me all kinds of excited. So with that being done, that is what we read for the month of June. Not a whole lot, which is why we are continuing the spinner wheel, since we really only did one book off the spinner wheel for June. We're going to try to get a few more in there for the month of July, and see how we're going and see how it's doing. But I don't know, given the fact of how busy it's kind of gone through and how surprising that's been for me. We'll see. But other than that, I keep saying other than that, but I hope you guys are doing well. I hope your June was maybe a little bit more productive than mine in the reading sense. But I wish you guys all well. Hopefully you are enjoying things, enjoying your summer. If you're watching the World Cup, enjoying it. Let me know what team you're rooting for and if they're still in it. I've been rooting for a bunch of different teams. We all kind of have our little bit of favorites. Obviously we were cheering for USA for as long as they could go. But we do have a few other ones. You know, we're seeing some of the players in their last World Cup, Messi, Ronaldo, and like Modric and a lot of other players. So it's being good. I'm loving the atmosphere with everybody kind of discovering America and it kind of shining a little bit more positive light on us, considering a lot of the negative stuff that's kind of been said about America, which, you know, was sad because, you know, there are a lot of really great people and things here too. So just like any other country, there's a lot of beauty and a lot of wonderful people to every country, just as much as there are some of the more negative components. So it's just, you got to be one of those that just look to the light, look to the hope, and just try your best to move forward and hopefully make it better for the next generations. So, that will be my little soapbox for this video, but hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you guys are having some good, decent weather. There are still some craziness going around. We are praying for rain right now because it's just been hot. So that is us. Stay warm, stay cool, stay hydrated, take care of yourself. If you guys are living in the UK and Europe, I know you guys have gotten blasted with the heat wave, so however you can stay cool, fill up the bathtub with some cold water and ice, and do a little ice plunge every now and then. And I don't know if that'll help, but maybe just find ways to, you know, cool down and enjoy what you can of the weather. But stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you guys in the next video.